I'm now excited and thrilled to welcome our closing keynote. Check this out, everybody. Vimeo's got Quinta Brunson in the house. She's a writer, actor, producer, and stand-up comedian from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, best known for creating, writing, producing, and starring in the Emmy-award winning sitcom Abbott Elementary. Quinta's first ever TV series is a fictional show about teachers in the Philadelphia public school system. Now, Quinta started her journey at Second City in Chicago and has grown to amass hundreds of millions of video views across online social media channels. Prior to joining BuzzFeed Motion Pictures, Quinta created the series The Girl Who's Never Been on a Nice Date, and went on to become one of the first series to gain a huge viral fan base on social media. She has since been cast as an actress in a variety of TV series and films. Quinta also added author to her growing list of accomplishments with She Memes Well. In this essay collection, Quinta applies her trademark humor, and it is funny, and heart to discuss what it's like to go from a girl who loved the World Wide Web to a girl whose face launched 1,000 memes. Really? Gonna buy me that popcorn, right? Please join me in welcoming Emmy award-winning writer, actor, and producer, Quinta Brunson. It's great to have you on. Look, I know you began your career posting short Instagram videos when the concept was still new. We were just talking about that while I was buying some time on your book. And I know that you did things at BuzzFeed and worked out making video content. From there, you did something totally unexpected and made a network comedy show, which may not be unexpected to you, but maybe to everyone else that was just getting to know you, it was unexpected. Does this seem like surreal, or did you have a vision for this all along?
No, I feel like I've had the vision for it all along. The beginnings of my career, which to a lot of people looked like digital, but for me, the beginnings were learning about comedy, improv, doing that in college and post-college at Second City. And then it was practicing improv on stage and doing stand-up. And then it was making videos for the internet and, going viral, which wasn't my intention, but I've always talked about the internet just being another stage. That's how I like to look at it. And that whole time I just wanted to work up to making a television show, but I was just practicing my craft any way I could on the way to doing that. And I look at making a TV show, making Abbott, as a way of practicing my craft still. It helps in whatever I'm going to do in the future.
Yeah. What's interesting about that too, right, is when I was reading in the book, I was learning a lot about how you did take these risks and you took these steps, and that you always wanted to be on that stage. But then all of a sudden this viral moment happens, and now you get this shot for like $50 to grab your friends to go ahead and do a performance, and you got 24 hours to do this performance in. It seems like you spent a lot of your career listening to your instinct and going against the grain, doing precisely what others really don't. Do you ever get imposter syndrome like us baby creators, or do you find a way to quiet that voice?
I don't have it. I don't have imposter syndrome.
Lucky you.
Talked about this before.
How did that happen?
Because I really believe that you are meant to be where you are.
Wow.
I do deeply believe that. Even, for instance, I used to work at Abercrombie and Fitch, right? And American Eagle. Sorry, I was just talking about Abercrombie & Fitch. But I used to work at American Eagle, and I remember being like, I don't want to play jeans for the rest of my life, but I'm here. It's probably something to learn from this experience. And I'm just going to live life in the moment. And I feel like I still have that feeling even when I'm doing things like working on Abbott. I know it is a big deal and seems like a big deal, but it just feels like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, like I am where I'm meant to be. And I feel like imposter syndrome comes from thinking that you're not supposed to be in that place and you're there by accident.
But
I just think we're rarely, I think we are rarely somewhere by accident.
Yeah, Quinta, that really rubbed me warm, because I'm telling you, so many people are in the room right now and think that they may not supposed to be in that room. And what I'm hearing from you is no matter how old, how young, what you look like, whatever, if you're in the room, you're supposed to be in that room. It's powerful to hear that from you, because it is a label that I think we apply to ourselves that then makes everything feel so much heavier. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Now, you're a big creative risk type of person. At least that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. What would you say has been the biggest creative risk that you have taken that has paid off?
Oh, that's a good question.
Ooh, I like this. I've read a lot of questions, and I'm like, I'm not asking that same question. I'm not asking that same question.
I think that Abbott was a big creative risk. I was making a network show at the time where a lot of my peers were making shows for streaming or cable, and network is a notoriously hard process. It's hard either way, making a TV show. If you see any TV show, it was hard for that thing to be made. It's just not an easy thing to do. But network is very hard, and putting my voice, my vision, a certain kind of humor in the network space was a risk. It would have been easier to do on cable or streaming. But I wanted to challenge myself to make Abbott for everyone, make it accessible to everyone. I didn't want it to only be for people who, could stomach cursing and sex and drugs and stuff like that. I wanted to, rise to the challenge of making this show for everyone and still being able to have moments like the character Tariq on the show rapping about drugs. So it's like, how do we do that? But we make it for the entire family to watch. And that was a risk.
Yeah, that was a big risk. And I really, somebody that's in the industry watching you, that is a major risk. And, you accomplished it in a big way. My mother loves the show. I love the show. Guess what? We talk about it. We watch it together. So it did exactly what you grew up doing, right? Like watching family television. Yeah. And to try to bring that back in a time where everything was going in a different direction is really a tough thing to do. So kudos to you for doing that. But I do have a question. Part of that may relate to a lot of other creators that may be struggling. And that is, selling an idea isn't easy. Selling an idea is just not easy. So many watching struggle with getting financing or others to see their vision. What suggestions or frameworks do you use to try to pitch your ideas to non-creatives?
So I was fortunate enough to study marketing and advertising in college. And I think those are such important classes to take. Now, if you're out of college already, no problem. I think there are just books that you can read that help you to understand the other side of the business. You know what I mean? Like, you want to know what it takes to sell. And studying marketing and advertising really helps with that. I think the main thing I come across with other creative peers is they know how to be creative, but they don't know how to talk to someone who could care less about how important your show is or how important your story is. At the end of the day, they want to know, will you make the money back? Can you tell me mathematically why this will make money? And it doesn't mean you have to lose what's special about it, about what it is that you're trying to make. It doesn't mean you have to lose your creative spirit in making it, but you do need to be able to know how to communicate to the person, place you're selling to, what this thing can do for them. Network and streaming and cable are different. They have different interests. If you're talking about a movie, streaming has different interests from a theater. It has different interests from like a indie festival. There are just different ways to communicate with all of these people. And I really think studying the business side of what we do makes it 100 times easier. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate it to someone who's not inside your head, then it won't sell.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of times, a lot of independent creators could be getting their ideas funded through brands, but you got to know how to present it to the brand in a way that they would actually see value in it. Not just the idea, but what's like in it for them, that they would benefit from that. Yeah, it's a great point. All right, I want to read a quote that you gave to an online publication earlier this year. You said, at its root, Abbott is just full of good stories. The show alone is a good story. And then the stories we can tell with Abbott are good. And that is what makes it important to me. And I think it's important to any piece of work. All the talent, all of that can only complement a good story. So in a nutshell, how do you create good stories? Quinta, that's the secret sauce. Come on.
Okay, my secret sauce is being able to see a fully formed world.
That's
intense. I may not know all the teeny tiny moving pieces, but using Abbott, for instance, that world was so clear to me. I could already sleep and breathe in that world, know how the characters sounded, know what the walls and the school looked like. I knew the culture of the world too, which I think is important, knowing the culture of your show. And I think that is a good story. A lot of times people are like, well, it has to be extremely personal. I don't believe that. I know we are kind of in like the identity era, but all the time I talk about shows like Game of Thrones. That's not anyone's life, but it's a well-built world. Yeah. And it has strong characters with strong motivations. It knows all of its rules and it knows its boundaries. Knowing the world is so valuable. And if you don't know that about the story you're trying to tell, it could just be really hard to make it worth something valuable, but also hard to make it something that you could even write for yourself. You want to know your own world.
Okay, it's really powerful to kind of like get to that level of detail. Because as I said, Quinta, I'm a fan of the show, right? So I'm like, one of my jobs that I had was a tech help desk. I did tech help desk for Baltimore City Schools. I did it for a lot of other clients. And I'm like, where's the help desk to go check on Ava's computer? Because I know Ava's got some stuff on that computer that we all know that she's working on. Or where's the smart boards that Janine is trying to like work through, and now the smart board is causing more problem in the education. So I love that you think about the world, and you even have me thinking about like what that world is. That's when I feel like it really resonates, when other people can kind of like even see themselves like, oh, I'm that teacher, or I'm that person,
Yes, and going back to a show that's extremely different, like Game of Thrones, it takes you being like, oh, see, this is what I would do in that situation. This is what I would do with that dragon. And it's like, you don't, but you can see yourself in the world because the world is so well formed. There's so many shows that aren't technically as relatable as Abbott. Abbott's about teachers. As my co-star Lisa says, everyone either is a teacher or had a teacher. But there are shows that are way less relatable. For instance, Succession. We try to watch that show and like envision who we'd be in that horrible family or which character.
That's right.
The moves we'd make. You know what I mean? So you just want a world that is so well built that it's easy for you to write and easy for an audience to get involved with.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. One of the questions that we had that came in is, what is your advice to creatives who wear many hats like yourself, who are aiming to produce, write, direct, and star in TV film productions? What has helped you manage all those roles?
Well, for the first 2 seasons of Abbott, I think I just put my head down and did the work. Season 1 was very much about building the engine of the show, making sure that I got all of my writers on the same page, my crew, my art department, directors, etc. Second season was like that engine felt built, but then we had double the amount of episodes. And so we kind of had to build out even more. It's like, well, okay, I had to find my own place in my own world again. I said, where do I pull back on? I can't be in the editing room all the time now because this is just too much television. I have to pull back on editing a little bit. I have to pull back on going to the mixes. I have to be a little bit less precious with the scripts, but still find a way to be directly involved. Although I would love to write 2 scripts a year, I can only write 1 script or a season. I can only write 1 because that's realistic. So I think that's how I've managed thus far. I will say that it's really not easy wearing all 3 hats. And because of this strike, I was able to realize the amount of work I was actually doing. And it really was insane. And I've since talked to other creatives about it, like Rachel Bloom, who had the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. She did the same thing. I think she did 18 episodes, but her show was an hour long. And she was a producer, writer, and creator, and actor. And It's not easy work. It's really not. But you have to give yourself boundaries. No one's going to give you those boundaries, especially if you're working with a network that at the end of the day, even if you have a wonderful relationship with them, like I do with ABC, they just want their show. It's up to you to say, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm not going to do. Here's what I'm not capable of. You do have to take care of your body and mind. It's really important, or else you're going to turn out, a bad project, and you don't want to do that. So I think when you're wearing all three hats, it really is about creating boundaries for yourself, and making sure you can do the best work.
Yeah. Do you think that, early on in your career when you went viral, you realized that the internet was like its own thing and you just didn't have any control? Do you think that you mentioned this in the book about like giving in to like letting go? And I just wonder how many people, when they write those kind of lines about, I want to be a producer, writer, actor, and all these things, like, how do you make the decision as to what to let go? Is there some short formula or process that you decide or go through that may help someone else decide what to let go of? And it's okay.
I think it's important to really listen to yourself and say, what am I capable of? I know after Abbott, I will probably never be capable of doing all three again, because, and I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel like, oh man, I'm letting myself down or failing. Like, I'm not going to be capable of that anymore. I won't be. That's an extreme amount of work. I would love to only write or only produce, because that's what I'll be able to do moving forward, or only act in something. So I think it's really important to listen to yourself, and it's a personal thing. You have to say, here's what I think. Meanwhile, when I started Abbott, I felt fully capable of doing so much for the show, and that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a powerful perspective. Thank you for saying that. We have a question from the audience, which I think is great. What was one piece of advice that you received that changed your mindset in creating and storytelling? One piece of advice. Anything come to mind?
A very simple piece of advice from Larry Wilmore, which was, I have two from him. One of them is that nothing should ever not happen in a scene. When I first started working with him, he really felt very strongly that you can't have a scene where nothing happens. Like, a door has to open, a mind has to change. And I think, especially because of the internet, we get used to writing in these waves where nothing is happening, and it's a little bit of something has to happen. And it's up to you as a writer to decide what that something is. There's a great play called Waiting for Godot, very famous play, where when you look at it from the outside, it feels like nothing is happening in that play. But in each scene, there is forward motion emotionally with our characters. And that's important. Something has to happen. Something has to change. And the other piece of advice was, to write a good show, you should be able to put a $5 bill down, and each character in your show should pick it up a different way and do something different with it. Wow. And if you're not able to determine what that is, then you might want to go back to the drawing board to make sure that your characters are as distinct as they need to be. And I was able to answer that question easily with Abbott. I knew what each of those characters would do. You know what I mean? Ava would pocket it. Melissa would assume it was a trap. Janine would try to find the owner as hard as possible.
That's right.
Everyone want to touch it because it's dirty. It's really good to be able to answer those questions quickly. And that, to me, is my favorite thing I've learned about writing, especially a comedy. Because you want to be able to answer that question quick so you can get to their lines quickly. Yeah,
I see. Good point. Good point. Okay, we got another one that says, how do you stay up to date with the skills you need to keep pushing the needle while also sitting in a leadership position that removes you from the trenches?
Oh, man, that's deep. Yeah. I'm still figuring that one out. It became harder because I started removing myself from the internet a little bit.
How did you do that? What do you mean? Like, what'd you do?
Took Twitter off my phone. Like, that was the easiest way. But so it became harder to be as involved, but it was necessary. I needed the great power to actually make the show, especially during season 2 with 22 episodes. I really just wanted a clear mind and I needed to focus on everything. But my writers keep me young. They keep me abreast of things. My friends, they keep me engaged. And, I watch the news. I tap in with my employees. I'm not sure if that question was about like culture in general or if it was about like just the people around me. But I check in with everyone who works on the show, make sure that everyone is doing well and that we're having a good time. I think it's just about checking in, but not being consumed by it because my main goal is to continue to steer the ship.
Yeah, and that's a tough position to be in. And I think that's also maybe where this question was coming from, like steering the ship, but also not feeling like they're losing out on what are the new tools, what are the new strategies. And so it sounds like you got to have a good team around you that keeps your ear to the ground, people that can be like, hey, Quinta, check this out. Have you seen this? And so it kind of like filters to you in that way so that you can kind of still stay close to what's happening and not be so removed just because you're leading a team, a squad.
And as far as like keeping up on new tools and stuff like that, like that's to me just about like, it's about reading. I mean, I love to read books about my industry, especially new books that come out because people are documenting what's going on now. Books are just now getting to TikTok and understanding that part of media. So reading has just been helpful. I love to read the trades, Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, because in my industry, that's the current news. That's telling us about what's new and what's coming.
When you think about creators today, maybe they're not making network shows, but maybe they're making things for brands, or maybe they're trying to shoot short films and they have an idea. They know the world. They've really done their work to kind of create this world. What do you see as a great next step for them to take? Is it a sizzle? Is it a pilot? Is there something else that we're missing that maybe we could be just developing that doesn't require a whole army of people to pull together? And I guess I'm saying that to try to get like people like like people's attention, and not just the consumer's attention and the viewer's attention, but also like non-creatives' attention. Like what should they develop? Is it just a storyboard? Is that enough? Like what are some things you think is enough in order to try to get the attention to give you the momentum to the next step?
When it comes to stories and everything, it kind of goes back to my other answer earlier, which is you really want to have a world that is so well built and engaging because that transcends everything. Right. So you spoke about a storyboard. A storyboard is fine if that world is so engaging that it's going to draw people in. I think about stand-ups and there's a stand-up I really like named Sabrina Wu. And Sabrina tells such an incredible story on stage that you just can't help but get engaged with Sabrina. Like I want to buy what Sabrina is selling because the world that Sabrina's built is incredible. And that's stand-up. Meanwhile, there's this TikToker that I wound up watching with my niece. And I was like, this girl's unreal. She's making these 5-minute TikToks, but she's building an entire world. I can see every character clearly.
Wow.
I know where she is. And that makes me want to buy in, And so I really think it goes back to having a clear vision, a world you believe in, a world that is so well built that it can transcend platforms. There's this girl named Sabrina Breyer, I think it is, who makes I've only seen her on Twitter, but I think she makes TikToks, and her world is so well built. I know her. I know this character she's playing. I know that character's friends. I know what bar she goes to in New York. I can see the world fully, and that it makes me want to buy it. And I think that that's not even just with like creative stuff. You think about an athlete who all of a sudden becomes like the top athlete. We're buying more than the fact that they're just good at sports. We're buying into the story most of the time. Like LeBron wasn't just compelling to us because LeBron's a good basketball player. LeBron has a story, how he came out of school, his story with these teams that he's been a part of, we're always following a very good story.
I mean, Deion Sanders is that right now. Like, Colorado football,
Yes.
Deion Sanders is exactly your point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I have a quick question. So in order to help, we've talked about developing this world, and I wonder if we can help the viewers. Maybe are there 2 or 3 questions that come to mind as prompts that can help us start to unravel the world?
That's a good question. I think I ask myself the same things I know about myself. What store does this person go to shop at? What shows does this character watch? What does the neighborhood look like for this character? I ask those things when I'm, making a show. I think, what kind of makeup does this person use? For instance, with Janine on Abbott, I'm like, I know she shops at Targets or thrifts. I know that she doesn't eat at fancy restaurants because she can't afford to.
Right.
So I know she's more than likely shopping at the local big grocery store, picking up what she can, and probably has a favorite snack because she's kind of a kid at heart. Mm-hmm. So she probably still eats Go-Gurt and thinks that's acceptable. It's little questions like that help build. And, when you answer those questions, it builds out more. I'm like, well, if I'm saying she doesn't have enough money to shop at certain places, that helps me to know what her apartment looks like. It helps me to know what kind of car she drives. Those little questions just help build out the world. In a really great way.
I can even see how that even goes further into like the psychology of that character. If they don't have the money, was that a problem in their upbringing? Did they not talk about money?
Yeah.
Was that taboo? I can see like all these other things. Wow, that's deep. Thank you for sharing that, because I wanted to make sure that we could also walk away with like some questions and how we could think about asking those questions to help us develop those better worlds, because we can get a clearer vision when we do that. So thanks for that.
I think a really good example recently, and this is so silly, people are going to think I'm being silly, but I'm being so serious, was the Super Mario Brothers movie, because I think that's where they had to reverse engineer. They had to ask these questions about these characters we've known forever in this crazy ass world.
Right.
But then it was like, okay, we have to make a movie about this. So they reverse engineer. It's like, where are Mario and Luigi from? What are their parents like? Where do they go? You know what I mean? And I think that movie was fascinating because I know those people had to ask those questions in real time to build this video game into a movie. And I'm always like really into when they can pull something like that off.
Yeah.
Because it's really cool.
Yeah, because clearly, even though my name is Mario, Mario's not from Baltimore. Like Super Mario's clearly not from B-more. I mean, he can probably run, he can run through the city with the best of them and jump around, but he's clearly not from B-more. So they knew that character.
He's clearly not from B-more. Mario, the game is insane when you really think about it. It's just bananas. Like, what are we looking at when we're playing that game? And so they had to turn that into something real that people could buy into.
Yeah, and you're a big like Mario fan, because you were playing this game when you were trying to figure life out. In fact, we have a quick question before we wrap up with you. In your days before Abbott, how did you stay inspired when life was happening around you, other than Mario Kart?
Well, Mario Party. No.
Oh yeah, that's right, Mario Party.
Books. Reading books is always inspirational to me. I don't think I could ever write a fiction novel, but I'm really inspired by not being able to put a book down. I think that just inspires me. I'm fascinated at people who write fiction novels. Just, I don't know, incredible to me. And, and I think helps me with storytelling. Good movies, good music. I love to see things that I'm actually wowed by, where I kind of go, wow, how did that person think of that? How did they, especially music, because music's just gorgeous and beautiful. And I like thinking about how someone created, such a thing. Family and friends, actually going out and living life, which is something that I really, really encourage all creators to do. One great thing about this time off I've had, even though, it sucked because it was a strike, was I had the time to go outside and like live again and I'm in London right now, and I am so appreciating this time to walk around, to see new things, to, go to places I've never been before. So I think that's really important and inspires you.
Yeah, you're taking it all in, Quinta. Well, we really appreciate the time. In closing, we're going to wrap up right now, but which sibling is the sibling of you got your 5 children deep in your clan. Which sibling was the one that was like so ecstatic when Abbott Elementary took off? I mean, I'm sure all of them had their own excitement, but there's got to be one that stands out.
All of them. I think I would say my brother Quay is my biggest cheerleader. He's just so supportive, always has been, of everything I've done and do. So probably him. But honestly, all my siblings, they are all just so supportive of me. And they were happier the writer's strike was over than I was. Like, they're all posting on their Instagrams like, yeah, send it. I'm like, you guys are too funny. But yeah, all of them are very supportive.
Well, thank you for sharing your time, sharing your presence, and your clarity of mind with us. We really, really appreciate that. Our thanks to Quinta for helping us end Outside the Frame with inspiration and motivation. And we can't thank all of you enough for joining us on this important and empowering journey to be bold. Now it's in your hands, people. By the way, pick this book up. It really is a great book, okay? If you're ready to take your bold step, sign up for a Vimeo self-serve account by scanning that QR code on your screen. It's quick and easy and gets you moving in the right direction right away with everything you've just seen and heard fresh in your mind. Go ahead and grab that, scan that QR code. Go ahead, point your phone at it. Just because we're at the end of our program doesn't mean we're done with social media. Keep those creative suggestions and comments headed our way using the hashtag VimeoOTF, and our social media team are waiting to celebrate and share with you everywhere. Look, it's been an honor, so much fun to be your host for Vimeo's Outside the Frame. But before we part ways, I want to leave you with this. Remind yourself who you're fighting for. Let that drive you. Don't just let the ideas lead your intention. Let your intention lead the ideas. I want you to illuminate something that gives greatness to the world, and I want you to build around that. So build that world. Look, there's a cost to not living your dream, and I'm not talking about money. It's the price you pay for not being the person you're meant to be. So we all lose out if we don't receive your unique gift. So please don't do that to us. Every video you create and every story you tell has the power to inspire, entertain, and change the world. So keep creating, keep innovating, and keep sharing your unique voices with the world. The Vimeo team and I will be right here watching, cheering you on, and celebrating your successes. And on behalf of the entire Vimeo team and the entire production crew, there are a lot of people here putting their best out for you. I'm Mario Armstrong, telling you to be original, be experimental, and be visible. Let's go, Vimeo. We're out. Jane,